Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with us. I heard you mention that Luke Goody, the former Illinois transfer, former home Fort Wayne native of Fort Wayne, officially signs with Indiana. It takes a while for that stuff to happen.
It does, yeah.
It's like they're going through background checks or something.
Well, that's kind of what it is, right? Like that's what you're talking about with the credits. The credits have to clear. Like at some places, it's a rubber stamp, but even when it's a rubber stamp, the credits still have to clear with the admissions office, and so that's almost certainly what was happening. I know there were some IU fans because I saw them on Twitter and on other places getting very nervous that Umar Ballo had not signed for a couple of days there. It was like, oh, Rice and Carlisle have signed. Where's Ballo's letter? and so like it's that kind of stuff where it's like sometimes the transfer credits have to clear, right? And so that's I'm sure what was happening, but it's on a different time scale for everybody. But now they have all 4 commitments are officially signed, and so they can kind of move on to filling those last 2 scholarships. I did enjoy that they had they noted that Luke Goody's family is very there's obviously a ton of connections to Indiana there, and in the statement they talked about bringing him back into the Indiana University family. Of course, his dad played football there, his uncle played football there, his brother goes there. I'm not sure how much of this you guys covered on the show last week when he committed, but that was kind of an interesting thing when he when Indiana played at Champaign this year. Goody's brother went to the game. Goody's brother goes to IU just as a student. And Goody was asked about that after the game, and he said, yeah, I had to let him know, hey, don't wear IU gear to the Illinois family section.
Yeah.
Because he said his brother brought some of his friends from IU, and they watched the game in the Illinois family section. And he's like, I had to make sure, hey, don't wear the IU gear while you're there. And then Goody went and scored 11 points in that game and had 3 3-pointers. And he was like, so yeah, there's going to be some trash talk in the group chat tonight. So I always thought that was a little bit of a nice, especially now that he's transferred to IU, it's a little bit of a nice story to kind of come full circle now, and he and his brother will spend next year together. So that's kind of cool. But no, Luke Goody. He's a guy he's a guy who's going to play for Indiana this year. Absolutely, I think he probably has a similar role to the one he had for Illinois last year, somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes a game. And his job is going to be to come in and spot up and shoot threes. I think that's going to be the main thing. But I think he's kind of been pigeonholed into he's the shooter guy that we got. I don't think that's fair I don't think that's entirely true to him. He's a great shooter, don't get me wrong. But he does a lot of things really, really well. I think he had a game against Indiana in Bloomington a couple of years ago where he had basically his best game of the season that day. Indiana won the game, but Brad Underwood was asked after the game about Luke Goody, and he basically said, like, you saw today why Luke Goody is such a valuable player. He's an elite shooter, obviously, but he always knows where to be on defense. He's super reliable. He's long. He uses his length well, and he knows where to be on the court at all times. And like every time Brad Underwood talked about Luke Goody, it was always in the most glowing terms. He's the type of guy that coaches like to have on their team. And so I am fascinated to see how he kind of carves out a niche for himself as more than just, I'm the shooter you brought in from the portal. I think he's more than that as a player. And I think he'll carve out a really important role for himself.
Yeah. The funny thing is that's talent that, no offense, the Indiana didn't have on the court in the starting lineup last year.
Yeah.
So to be able to bring that off of the bench is gigantic. Should be gigantic for Indiana. And it's not just going to be just Luke Goody either. I mean, how good they can be, I don't know. I'm out of the prediction game because
sure.
You just have to wait till everything falls into place, and there's a lot of other factors that figure into it.
Yeah.
How do they get along? How do they get along as a team? How do they flow? And so that all of that has to come together. And we'll see when it happens on the court. But the fact that the talent upgrade at Indiana has been immense. I mean, I would say that it has doubled in essence, and without doubling the talent has doubled with the same amount of players.
Yeah. And they still have 2 scholarships left to fill, right? There's still opportunities to add more. And I do think they probably will. And so there are talent. There has been a talent upgrade this offseason, like either Kanan Carlisle, who was one of the best guards in the transfer portal, or Trey Galloway. One of those 2 guys is going to come off the bench for IU next year. And you're going to have Luke Goody coming off the bench. You're going to have Bryson Tucker, the 5-star recruit, coming off the bench. And then these other 2 guys who you're going to add with the final 2 scholarships are coming off the bench. And it's like, for the first time in Mike Woodson's tenure, you might have, well, we can play that second unit. He likes to play the second unit. You can play the second unit and not feel like things are going to collapse around you in the 5 minutes, a lot of them around the court together. So hopefully he learned from last year, and maybe he's going to try to, he's going to move them in and out a little bit more. But there's talent in that second unit now where you can think, well, we're not actually going to have disaster happen in these 5 minutes here. But yeah, no, it's exciting to see. I'm interested to see what they do with the final 2 spots. I do think there's obviously probably some depth at the big that you need to have, just because I don't think you can go into the season with Ballo as your only center. I think you need a Peyton Sparks style guy, not Peyton Sparks obviously, but someone who fills that role, just going to play 10, 15 minutes a game. I think they would have liked to have had Elijah Malone, the kid from Grace, the NAIA Player of the Year. I think he was looking for more playing time. He committed to Colorado just the other day, and so I think that he was looking for a little bit more playing time. But they'll find another backup center, kind of a Michael Durr style individual that they can go out and get. And so just a guy to eat some minutes there on the front court for sure. And then go from there with that last spot. So I'm excited to see what they do.
The one thing to me, if I were viewing it as an Indiana fan, I would say that there should only be 3 spots that are pretty much solidified as starting roles. And that would be in Mackenzie Mbako, Malik Renew, and Mr. Ballo.
Yeah.
Because I know that Kanan Carlisle and daggone it, Miles Rice have already in most people's minds been pegged in to the starting guard spots.
Yeah.
Haven't dribbled a ball. Why? Why are they not competing for the starting? Why is everybody not competing for the starting lineup? And that's how it should be. There should be no, well, this guy's going to, with a couple, but the other ones, balls out on the floor. Let them fight for it.
I think it's fair to say that 2 of the 3 of Rice, Carlisle, and Galloway are going to start. I think that there's going to be healthy competition between those 3 this offseason to find who the 2 starters are, right? And then the third one will be one of the first guys off the bench. They'll be part of that second unit along with Goody, along with Bryson Tucker, who I think is going to make some impact this year. I'm curious to see where his minutes come from, because I don't think he would have committed to IU if he didn't see a path to playing time. So I'm interested to see where that goes. But I do think that he finds a way, because he's so athletic and so talented, that I do think he finds a way onto the court eventually. So you have Tucker coming off the bench. You have Goody coming off the bench. You have one of Miles Rice, Kanan Carlisle, Trey Galloway coming off the bench, and then Anthony Leal, who I think also should find some. People kind of treat Anthony Leal as just like a feel-good story at the end of last season. Anthony Leal played really, really well at the end of last year. He was an additive to winning. There were reasons that he was on the court beyond we have no one else at the end of last year. He was really, really good. And maybe he's just a guy you bring in off the bench for 10 minutes a game, but that's a good guy to have for 10 minutes a game.
Yeah, I just don't know that he's going to be able to find that kind of time, to be honest with you. Of course, will depend on the game and the game situation, but and I will say with Trey Galloway, Mike Woodson has shown a penchant for rewarding loyalty and hence them going through senior day festivities, even though they weren't going to be graduating and knew they weren't going to be graduating, basically so they could stand out there and espouse the greatness of Mike Woodson. I mean, let's be honest. That was Leland Galloway's role during senior day. It was not to go through the ceremony because they're coming back next year. They knew they were coming back next year. Their role was a PR move.
It was to get people excited when there was not a whole lot of excitement going on. It was basically saying,
we're coming back. PR move for Mike Woodson.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so I do think that's they're leaders on the team, right? Like those are probably going to be the team captains. And you're right. I do wonder if Leal is going to get lost in the shuffle a little bit just because there's so much depth there at the guard position now at that wing spot.
Well, you got Ja'Kai Newton, Bryson Tucker. There's a lot of new names that are also added to the mix. We haven't even seen Ja'Kai Newton dribble a basketball during a game.
I am convinced that Ja'Kai Newton is a good player, by the way. Like, I don't know if he's going to play a ton this year. I am convinced he is going to be a very good college basketball player. Nothing I saw on tape from him in high school suggested to me that he could not play at this level. Yeah, he was hurt last year, and I think that actually hurt the team pretty significantly because I think he would have gotten some pretty significant minutes last year. But I think he might press for some minutes this year. But the problem is that you have I could see a path to playing time for basically everybody on the roster, essentially except Gabe Cupps, which I kind of feel bad about. Like, I thought Gabe Cupps made some pretty significant strides toward the end of last season, and he's going to go from playing basically 20 to 24 minutes a game last year to not playing hardly at all this year. And I kind of feel bad because he's a good player. He's going to be a good – I said this all of last year, even when he was struggling, even when it was kind of like 4-on-5, when he was in the game on offense, because he wasn't much of an offensive threat. I said it. He's going to be a good player for Indiana. It wasn't last year that he was a super impact player for them, but he did make some great plays down the stretch of the regular season, got better. He did what you want a freshman to do. And so I do wonder what happens with him this year, because if he didn't think he was going to play, he probably enters the portal, right? Like there would have been teams that wanted to have Gabe Cupps in the portal. And so they like either he thinks that he's going to find a way to play, or he thinks that there's going to be a direct path to him starting as a junior. And so I do wonder, maybe he redshirts this year. You know, maybe he takes a redshirt year to kind of build his body and go from there. So I'm fascinated to see what they do with him, because I think he could be a good player, especially if he works this offseason on what I thought was a fundamental flaw in his game last year, was that every time he shoots a jumper, he's fading to the side. Like that he's a good shooter, who the number one reason he didn't shoot a better percentage last year was because when he would shoot a jump shot, he was fading to one side or the other almost every time. And I think that if you fix that, he has a really, really good stroke, and he could be a very good shooter for them. Maybe he's the backup point guard. Maybe he plays 15 minutes a game as the backup point guard to whoever starts at that spot, if it's Miles Rice or if it's Kanan Carlisle. But I'm fascinated to see what his role is, because I do think that he could make some kind of sophomore leap where he's a very good player. I just don't know where the minutes are going to come from. It's the same thing with Anthony Leal, where it's like, I think he can be a good player. I just don't know where the minutes come from.
Well, then what does Galloway play?
Galloway, I assume, is probably going to be, and that's like
he can't shoot well enough to play the two.
So okay, here's my thing with Galloway as the shooter, and I know we're coming up on time here. Galloway is not a 22% 3-point shooter. I fundamentally do not believe that. Trey Galloway is going to shoot 34% from 3-point range this year. Mark it down. 34%, bare minimum. Because
34%.
Yes, he is a good enough shooter that he can do that. There is no reason that he cannot. We saw it when he was a junior. Shot 46%. He's not going to shoot 46% this year. I get it. He is a good enough shooter to be passable. He was in his own head last year. It was a mental thing, not a physical thing as a shooter. He just got in his own head because he knew that they didn't have enough shooting, and he wanted to be the guy who provided it, and he couldn't do it, and it was driving him nuts. That is not any reporting on my side. It is just what I could see just from him on the court. And like, I watch him in warmups every single game. I get there early to the games. He's out there draining 75% of the threes that he takes in warmups. He has a good stroke. He will be a fine three-point shooter when the pressure is a little bit more off and spread out this year. I think he's fine. So I do wonder when he's on the court, I don't think he plays point guard, would be my guess. I know he's a great creator. I think you want him more off the ball as a creator than you want him being the main guy on the court, would be my guess. I think he's a great secondary ball handler to have on the court rather than being your point guard. That's my guess. I'm not sure, but that would be my guess.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and thank you for enjoying our content and videos. And make sure you hit that subscribe and notifications toggle so you don't miss out on anything, whether it's Indiana Hoosiers, the Boilers, the Colts, the Pacers, Indiana high school action, whatever is happening in sports. We're trying to bring it all to you, and make sure you don't miss out on a thing. Again, hit the subscribe button for us. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much.